stuff, including at TCS. So.
I'm Nancy Bockwitz, retired teacher, former Girl Scout leader and cookie mother. So I'm so happy to see Girl Scout cookies out here. And education is my heart, and I belong to an organization called PEO that exists to further women. Unfortunately, we should change that, women's education, to go as far as they can. So happy to be here to hear from you.
Hi, my name is Katherine Fromherz, and thank you so much for being here today. I don't know how to use this clicker. Oh, okay, got it. To start things off, I'll give you a little background information on myself. I was diagnosed with scoliosis when I was 7 years old, and I began regularly scheduled x-rays to monitor my progression shortly after. I also started biweekly physical therapy in an attempt to slow my spinal curvature. And then when I was 11, I was fitted for my first back brace. And that is me with it. I had a crazy bob, so I took my head out of it. But yeah, that's my spine and my back brace. And yeah, my back brace sucked. It was recommended that I wear it at least 15 hours a day. So I would sleep in it and then I would wear it to school, and I cannot emphasize enough how much of a pain this back brace was. And I also brought one of them. So if you can tell, this is not how your body is supposed to look. So it's supposed to like overcorrect my spine. This part really hurt. It went right into my side. It like moved my whole body. It was crazy. Yeah, so that sucked. And it was embarrassing. I felt like, okay, bye. I felt like a turtle, especially in the Sacagawea girls' locker room. Nothing will make you feel more outcasted than standing naked in a room full of girls in a bright purple plastic tube. So, yeah. And then after wearing it for 2 years, I went in for another x-ray, and it was not looking good. My spinal progression had worsened quite a bit, and in order to ensure that it would not become unmanageable, I had to make the decision to receive a spinal fusion. This is me with that. Those are all, like, the white pieces are all metal, so that's pretty cool. A spinal fusion is a surgical procedure that joins 2 or more vertebrae, which are bones in your spine, to create a solid and mobile segment of the spine. So for me, that was 12 vertebrae in my thoracic prominence, and it was really hard. It was hard to know that the work that I'd put in to prevent this was not enough. And that brings us to the beginning of freshman year. I got through orientation just fine. I started projects and I met some amazing people who I still am very close with, but in the back of my mind, I kept counting down the days to October 14th, which was the date of my surgery. Recovery was really hard. Everything itched and hurt, and I had a catheter, 2 IVs, an epidural, and basically everything invasive that you could put in me, and I hated it. It took a week for me to walk again and a month for me to go back to school, which as someone who loves school was very difficult. And then when I finally recovered enough to shower, I was a little disheartened, to say the least. I thought it would fix more of me, and somehow medicine had advanced enough to correct my ribs or fix my shoulder blades or maybe improve my posture. But as I stood looking in the mirror, I saw the same person staring back at me as I had seen before my surgery. Maybe an inch or so taller, but it was pretty similar. It was a pretty hard few months after that. I didn't spend nearly enough time focusing on schoolwork, and it set me back a lot in my education. It wasn't until January of that year that I started to focus on my education again. And one of the things that inspired me to get back into it was being on the Stagecraft Wellness. It had provided a space for me to explore a lot of my passions and take advantage of a new art medium. And then this is a picture of me like recently. So this is what my spine looks like now. Pretty freaking straight, so that's pretty awesome. Yeah, and then this is some of the examples of things that I did in the Stagecraft Wellness, and then also at Civic. It was the first time that I worked on a set in Stagecraft, and I fell in love with it. I built a bathtub on wheels, a mountain, an insane amount of props, and so on. The production that I first worked on sadly got canceled, but the following year I was assigned to the role of charge artist. I designed and painted the set, I built props, the dragon, I worked on makeup as well as costuming and assisted with lights in She Kills Monsters. I was also in the play. I don't have a very good picture of all that I worked on in that play in my presentation, but in Albert's presentation, there was a big picture of him up on the stage, and I designed all of that. So that dragon is the first thing that I worked on in that. And I think this experience really helped me open up to a lot of new possibilities in creative collaboration and problem solving under pressure. I then became head of scenic for the showcase last year in the play The Last Day of School. So that image with like the weird rainbow stuff is from the showcase. I only had a week to work on it before the show opened. So I did not have much time, and it is not my favorite thing that I've worked on. But this is from The Last Day of School. This is not nearly as much as I worked on. This is like rotating, so I painted a wall in front of it. I painted all of this. These two walls I designed, and then there's two more also. And I did not completely paint those by myself, which I was really glad about, but it was still a lot of work. I also worked on a production over the summer called Xanadu Jr., where I mainly focused on props. So it was really interesting to take a step back from my normal position in scenic for the first time since sophomore year. And then Xanadu Jr. Unfortunately, I do not have any pictures of the props that I worked on during that, but they're pretty cool. And then in my 101 year, I also began giving tours at parents' nights, visiting middle schools, and meeting with student representatives from the district to discuss important topics. I haven't been able to stay as involved in that recently due to running START, but I still try and stay as involved as I can. These were all great opportunities to meet new people, make future students feel more comfortable, and be more involved in the community. So sorry. I think meeting with other representatives was especially meaningful because it kind of gave me a chance to see different perspectives and collaborate on ideas to improve our schools and to ensure that student voices were heard and in important decisions. I think meeting with other representatives was especially meaningful because it gave us a chance to share different perspectives and talk about real issues that students face. It felt really good knowing that our voices actually mattered and could help shape a lot of decisions. Those experiences really helped me grow, and they reminded me how important it is to stay involved and to speak up for others. Next slide. Another thing that I discovered while at TCS that was a big passion of mine was my love for activism. Technically, I started working with the Peace and Justice League of Spokane when I was in 7th grade, but that's aside the point. As a 101, I took Kenji, who's Tammy's son's social justice class for as long as it was offered, and it opened my eyes to a lot that was going on in the world around me. And as uplifting as it was to learn how I could make a difference, it was also deeply unsettling to see how much the decisions of people in power affected people that had little to no say in that matter. So I learned a lot about systemic injustices, environmental crises, and economic inequalities, which made me realize how interconnected our struggles are and how urgently we need change. It wasn't about understanding these issues, it was about feeling a responsibility to act. Once I started working more closely with Sarah Dixit and Planned Parenthood, taking that action became a lot more doable. I started getting involved in the community by working booths at Pride Parades. So in that picture, those are times that I was working booths. I think I've worked 2, 3, I don't know. Those were both different times, so at least 2. And then I assisted teaching sex ed courses, canvassing for city councilors and representatives, which I began doing at the beginning of the summer. That picture at the very end is me canvassing for Paul Dillon. And I also started creating zines and flyers, attending debates, and presenting a lot more information to the public about a lot of issues and all of our candidates. And eventually I even started assisting teaching the teen educational activism class and lobbying at the Capitol. This year especially, I've noticed a lot of growth within myself in this regard as I began testifying for bills such as the rewrite of the Parental Bill of Rights Act, which was passed, and I attended the signing of it last week with Sarah and Albert and a bunch of cool people. This was insanely exciting. Additionally, I began supporting educational programs and awareness campaigns to combat distracted and drunk driving. My volunteer work and activism shaped so much of my high school experience, and they really helped shape who I am as a person as well. It's high school, sorry, It taught me a lot about my power of community, how important it is to stand up for what you believe in, and that every little action can make a difference. It's given me a sense of purpose and made me realize that I can keep pushing for change, even if it feels a little bit overwhelming. While this was all happening, I was also working. I started my position at Riverfront Park when I was 16 years old. I love ice skating, so I knew from the moment that I saw the opening I needed that job. I worked there for 2 years, treating minor injuries, teaching children to skate, dealing with some major injuries, and all that sort of stuff. And then for the summer, I did concessions. I just ensured everyone's safety, and then again, I still treated minor injuries because it was Riverfront Park, so a lot of crazy stuff was happening down there. I also scooted a lot back and forth between the carousel and the ribbon with my boss, Carrie, who's the one screaming in that picture. I love her. I did have to say goodbye to that position about 3 months ago, unfortunately, as a man did start to come in very consistently and ask me some pretty personal questions. At first, I thought it was a little bit strange, but eventually it progressed to him being aggressive to my coworkers and asking me about my car and mentioning the exact model that it was, which was not information that I gave him. So I put in my 2 weeks very quickly because I was getting very worried for my own safety. My employers did not make me feel protected in that situation, so I put my 2 weeks in and then kind of was on my own for a bit, which sucked. I loved that job a lot. It was super awesome. It was all of the experiences that I had were super great except for that one, but ultimately I had to prioritize my own safety. I'm very grateful for a lot of the friendships that I made and a lot of the experiences that I had, and as of now I'm back with the Parks Department as a maintenance worker, which is where I will continue to be into next school year. And I get to drive a truck, so upgrades. I love blue collar. Yeah, and I had a lot of really cool opportunities and experiences extended to me since the beginning of freshman year as well, including the Women's Empowerment Summit, which I've attended almost every year. This is the only picture I have from these events, but yeah, basically the gang. I was nominated for the Social Studies, for the Spokane Scholars Award. I attended an event held by Whitworth where Liz Cheney spoke, and honestly too many other opportunities to count. These opportunities, though, did not just fall into my lap. I earned them through years of dedication, perseverance, and consistently putting in the work through high school, whether it was in my classroom, in extracurriculars, or in ways that, or just the way that I carried myself in school, as a student and as a leader. I've always tried to push myself and stay committed, and through that effort, it has opened those doors for me. Yeah. In any case you missed it, I am a part-time Running Start student. I'm graduating with both credits at Spokane Falls Community College and Eastern Washington College through the TCS Political Science course. My main focus has been to build my portfolio. These are not images of my portfolio, these are just some pictures from those classes. This is a collage that I made that I am actually considering putting in my portfolio. And then those images at the very end are from my figure drawing course. Those are all timed pieces. So I think the most time I had on one of those was 30 minutes, which was at the very farthest end. And then the other two bottom ones were 15, I believe, and then the top one was 20. And then that little dime thing in the corner, that is something that I made in my jewelry making class. So I had to hammer metal and get it really hot and cut it and all that stuff, which was pretty crazy. Did not love that class just because I got a lot of splinters and a lot of burns, but I think the stuff that I made in it was pretty cool. Yeah, so my main focus has been to build my portfolio. So I've primarily been taking art classes, and at this point I've done a little bit of everything. I think the class that impacted me the most was figure drawing. As of now, I've always obviously loved drawing people, but realism is something that I used to find really intimidating, so the fact that I was able to succeed in that class was really shocking. And now I'm really proud to say that I will be earning my associate's degree by the end of the quarter. next quarter, and I will be transferring to a four-year university to study early childhood education to hopefully someday teach elementary level art. Honestly, it feels kind of surreal to see everything come together after juggling high school, college, and work and growing as an artist. So it definitely wasn't always easy, but I've grown a lot and I've learned a lot about how to manage my time sometimes. And I speak up for myself and stay focused on what matters to me. I'm really excited for what's next. Getting to combine my love for art with teaching feels like the right path, and I can't wait to create a classroom that feels safe for everybody, where kids are able to be creative, express themselves, and just have fun while learning. Teaching elementary art has always been something that I'm passionate about, and I'm so ready to keep moving towards that goal. Yeah, thank you for your time.
We will open it up to the panel for feedback and questions.
Are Doc Martens like the footwear of choice at the community school? I feel like they're both rocking them. Hi, Katherine. Thanks for sharing who you are. Just one thing I was going to ask you. Would you consider running for office at some point in the future? In all sincerity. There's an open city council position right now. We could use someone like you in it.
I don't know. I think Sarah probably needs that position. I'm going to be president someday, I'd have to assume, but yeah, maybe. I don't know.
And then well, I think you should. Again, combination of passion and I think your ability to connect with people would be something that people would resonate with. And so, and then one thing I just noticed while you were speaking, you said like sorry or so sorry a couple of times, and then you described one of your artwork pieces as pretty cool. I would say just don't hold back on those things, right? No need to apologize to us. We're here to listen to you. And your stuff isn't pretty cool, it's really cool. So I would just encourage you as you move through life, both metaphorically and how you feel about yourself and the stuff that you produce and create, to just say, this is awesome, period. And you just end it there, because it really is. And so again, thanks for sharing who you are.
Thank you, yeah.
Also, your thing with the city, that feels like lawsuit, question mark? I don't know, maybe the water under the bridge.
I don't know
That feels
either.
like- anyways, you probably don't want to deal with that again. I was just like, that just didn't seem quite right. So, but either way, don't give caveats, don't under-explain, don't undersell yourself. Just say, I'm here, I'm awesome, I deserve to be here, this is where I belong.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Well, you started off educating us about your spine issue and your brace. I want to say, you stood up there, I'm looking at you, and you present as a beautiful, tall, poised person. Never would have guessed you'd gone through all that. So I know it was a lot of pain and a lot of hard time, but hopefully that's passed, and you go forward from there. You explain things very well. I do appreciate that. You have a great outlook on life and on your education and your future, despite the period of having to go through the braces and the surgery, which you said you hated, but you have a great outlook at that point. I love your activism. I love that you like to get involved, and when you do that, you help yourself as well as helping others. We need more people like you who have a passion to volunteer and to be an activist. You said you love school. That's a wonderful thing, because that is a lifelong activity. Learning is lifelong. I remember when I was in my 20s, I thought, if I don't learn something new every day, what's wrong with me? I mean, even if it's what the comparative pricing is on cantaloupes in the supermarket, but you learn something new every day. So I think you will be doing that for your whole life. Good for you to be aware when something doesn't feel safe, and you take steps to remove yourself from that. So it sounds like your decision maker apparatus is working pretty well. And Albert said he had to work on his, but you seem like you've got that under control. I like the planning aspect that you have in your personality, to plan all these things out and to keep an eye to the future with those plans. I feel you're a dedicated, a committed, a passionate, and involved young adult. And I think I appreciate you.
Thank you.
to go through what you went through as a younger woman than you are now. Seem to wallow in self-pity and doubt and so forth. But you must have an incredible inner strength to overcome all that. And I know it was hard, it was difficult and so forth. But instead of woe is me and I'm a victim, you took charge and look at you now. So it says a lot about what your spirit is and your makeup. And because of that, I think again, you're going to have a very successful career in life. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd like to pick up on that. I mean, I'm sitting here, I look at you, I think I'm looking in a mirror. And the mirror is reflecting back my son, who went into Sacagawea Middle School with a colostomy bag as a 7th grader. He went through, not a spinal problem, but a colon problem. And he's now 38 years old. But to your point about strength and resilience and, when I retired, I stood up and I talked about him as my hero. I mean, what he went through as a 12 and 13-year-old kid, he's one of the best athletes in the city at the time this happened. He just stayed with it as point number one. Number two, last week I was down at my old high school in the Valley and giving out money to people like you and this foundation that distributes money. And there were 53 kids applied. And I read all 53, there were 12-page applications, a lot of writing, the whole thing. Only one of them wanted to be a teacher. And to me, I said, there's something we're out of balance here. I mean, so for you to say that that's something that you want to do is really a powerful statement about you, because there's not a lot of folks in your world that are talking about that. But my Lord, we need help there, right? Good people, talented people. So I commend you for your strength and determination, and good luck.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll say all the nice things later when we do all the graduation gifts and whatnot. But I think, seeing you from your 201 year in human growth and development, being very quiet with the cool kids in the back, to who you are today is such a honor. You've grown tremendously and such a great public speaker. You're very kind and caring, and I think, what was your name? John. To John's point, you hide behind your humor and your wit, and you downplay things. So I would also encourage you to kind of step into your power, because I think you're incredible. And the vulnerability you shared in the presentation is something that I see as a huge growth point, because you don't tend to share those things. And I also think your strength is really shown throughout this presentation, but there's also so much that you left out because you probably don't think it's really cool, but Katherine has 1 million animals. Very diligently takes care of them and is unafraid to just pick them up, which for me, I'm terrified of that, but you have 73
There's a lot of birds.
A lot of birds. And so I think your tenderness and care shows in the way you care for the animals, and you wake up early and you're very diligent with that type of routine. And we're all very proud of you.
Thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we are very proud of you. I think the one thing that I'll say is that your panel picked up on who you were really easily. That means you did a fantastic job presenting yourself, so congratulations.
Thanks.